Millions of workers are the surprise winners from a major backflip by the Treasurer on superannuation.
The Federal Treasurer is tonight denying that he was rolled by the Prime Minister as he confirms significant concessions to the government's controversial superannuation tax proposal.
Jim Chalmers has been chewed up and his super tax has been chucked out.
For more than 2 years, the Albanese government has been telling you a story about making superannuation fairer, a story about making the rich pay their fair share. They've spent millions of dollars, countless hours of parliamentary time, and an ocean of political capital trying to force through a new tax on your retirement savings. They called you selfish if you questioned it. They called you greedy if you pointed out the flaws. They stood on their soapbox day after day and told you this was the only way. For 2 years, they've been ramming this down our throats, insisting that anyone who disagreed was just a defender of millionaires. And then on Monday morning, October 13th, 2025, they did what this government always does when it gets caught out. They panicked, they folded, and they performed one of the most humiliating, expensive, and trust-destroying backflips in recent political history. This isn't a story about a technical tax change. This is a story about breathtaking incompetence, staggering arrogance, and a complete contempt for the Australian people. It's a story about a government that knowingly pushed a flawed, unfair, and unworkable policy for 2 solid years, only to abandon it in a panic when the political heat got too much. This is the story of a multi-billion-dollar backdown that proves once and for all that these people have absolutely no idea what they are doing with your money and your future. Before we get into the shocking details of this multi-billion-dollar backdown, you know the drill. The mainstream media is reporting this as a sensible compromise, a tweak. They are deliberately downplaying the scale of this humiliation. They will not tell you the story of the 2 years of lies that led to this point. That's what we do. We are the resistance, we are the ones exposing the truth, and we are funded by you. If you've had a gutful of the spin, chuck us a few bucks on Patreon. It's the only way we can keep holding these clowns to account. Link in the description.
Okay, this morning on my recommendation, the Cabinet agreed practical changes to make the superannuation system stronger, fairer and more sustainable.
To understand the scale of this backflip, you have to understand the sheer arrogance of the original plan. For 2 years, Labor has been trying to pass a law that would fundamentally change the nature of superannuation in this country. It had 2 parts, and both of them were a direct assault on common sense and fairness. First, they wanted to double the tax on earnings for super balances over $3 million from 15% to 30%. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a classic soak the rich scheme. Only affects 90,000 people, they said, 0.5% of accounts. What they didn't tell you was the poison pill hidden in the details. The $3 million threshold was not going to be indexed. It was frozen in time. That means, thanks to inflation, it was a tax that would automatically creep down year after year, catching more and more ordinary Australians. A $3 million threshold today would be the equivalent of a $2 million threshold by 2040. It was a stealth tax, a ticking time bomb planted in the retirement savings of future generations. It was a lie, wrapped in an envy tax designed to slowly boil the frog and bleed middle-class retirees dry over decades. But that wasn't even the worst part. The second and most outrageous part of the plan was how they were going to tax you. For the first time in Australian history, they were going to tax unrealised capital gains. Paper profits. Let me translate that for you. Imagine you're a farmer who's worked the land for 40 years. Your farm is your superannuation. Its value on paper goes up because of a property boom in the nearest town. You haven't sold a single square inch. You haven't seen a single dollar of extra income. But under Labor's plan, Jim Chalmers was going to send you a massive tax bill. a tax on money you hadn't even received. How are you supposed to pay it? Sell off a paddock? Take out a loan? It was an insane, unworkable, and deeply unfair idea. It was a tax on thin air, and for 2 years, Jim Chalmers stood up, looked you in the eye, and told you with a straight face that this was the pinnacle of sound economic management. He wasn't just wrong, he was arrogant. He dismissed legitimate concerns from farmers, from small business owners, from anyone who dared to question the economic genius of taxing money that didn't even exist yet.
I do accept that this is a change to the proposal that we made more than 2 years ago.
For 2 years, the super industry, the coalition, the crossbench, and anyone with a shred of economic literacy told the government this plan was a disaster. And for 2 years, the government stuck its fingers in its ears and yelled, "La la la, we can't hear you." Until Monday. Faced with a stalled bill and a revolt from his own backbench, Jim Chalmers walked out in front of the cameras and announced a complete and utter surrender. He didn't just tweak the policy, he took a sledgehammer to its very foundations. He announced 6 major changes that completely reversed the original plan, each one a monument to his own failure. 1. The $3 million threshold will now be indexed. The stealth tax is gone. A massive win for everyone who saw this for the trap it was. They fought for 2 years to keep this trap in place, and now they've been forced to admit it was wrong. 2. The tax on unrealised gains is gone, scrapped, dumped in the bin where it always belonged. They will only tax real profits from real sales.
Treasurer, this is quite the retreat. Do you concede you got it wrong?
And we always try and take feedback seriously. We always try and find the best way through.
The tax on thin air has vanished. After 2 years of telling farmers and small business owners they were greedy for not wanting to be taxed on imaginary money, they've finally conceded the point. 3. To save face, they've invented a new tax tier, a 40% tax on earnings for balances over $10 million. This is a classic political distraction, a dead cat on the table to make it look like they're still being tough on the super rich while quietly abandoning the core of their original policy. It's a headline grabber designed to be cheered by the envy politics mob, while the real story is the collapse of their entire strategy. 4. The whole thing is delayed by another year to July 2026 because they now admit the super funds need time to figure out how to actually implement this mess. 2 years they had, and they couldn't even get the start date right. 5. Here's the sweetener, the bribe. They're increasing the low-income super tax offset, a move that will affect 1.3 million low-income workers. It's a good policy on its own, but make no mistake, it's being done now to distract from the humiliation of the backdown. It's a cynical attempt to buy off the people they've been ignoring for 2 years. And 6, my personal favourite, they've announced a review into how this will affect the special gold-plated defined benefit pensions for federal judges and pre-2004 politicians, including the Prime Minister himself. Don't worry, they'll make sure the rules don't hurt them too much. It's the classic Canberra two-step. One rule for you, another much more comfortable rule for them. It's a level of self-serving hypocrisy that would be funny if it wasn't so insulting. So what does this all mean? It means that for 2 years, the Australian government has been fighting a war against its own citizens on behalf of a policy that was fundamentally flawed, unfair, and unworkable. And now they've admitted it. But this isn't a victimless crime. This backdown comes at a staggering cost. The original policy was supposed to raise $2.5 billion in 2028. The new, watered-down version will raise only $2 billion. And because of the indexation, that gap will grow every single year. Worse, the sweetener for low-income earners will cost the budget $4.2 billion over the next 4 years. This isn't a backdown, it's a multi-billion-dollar black hole, created entirely by their own incompetence. At a time when the country is drowning in debt, they've just casually torched billions of dollars to cover up their own political embarrassment. This is a government that has lost all credibility on economic management. How can we trust them to run the country when they can't even design a tax policy that lasts more than 2 years? How can we believe anything they say about the budget when they can blow a $4.2 billion hole in it overnight just to save face? The uncertainty this creates is poison for our economy. How can anyone plan for their retirement when the rules can be changed and then changed back again based on the whims of a panicking treasurer? They defended the indefensible. They ignored the experts. They smeared their critics. And in the end, they were forced into a humiliating retreat. This wasn't a compromise. This was a surrender. It was an admission that they were wrong and that their critics were right all along. This is more than just a policy failure. It is a failure of character. It is a failure of leadership. And it is a failure of trust. They have proven that they are not fit to manage your money. They are not fit to manage the economy, and they are not fit to govern this country. So when you see them out there trying to spin this as a win, remember the truth. Remember the 2 years of lies. Remember the billions of dollars wasted. And remember that this is the government you are trusting with your future. If you're as disgusted by this display of incompetence as I am, then you know what to do. The mainstream media will let them get away with this. We won't. Join us on Patreon. Help us keep fighting. Let's send a message to Canberra that we're not falling for the spin. We see the truth. And we demand better. We demand a government that respects our intelligence, that respects our money, and that has the basic competence to design a policy that isn't a complete and utter shambles from day one. To see the latest Australian crisis, click this video here.